Welcome to Technado.
Welcome to another episode of Technado. I'm Sophie Goodwin, one of your hosts for the show. And before we get started, I just want to take a moment and thank the sponsor of the show, ACI Learning, the people behind IT Pro. You can use that promo code Technado30 for a discount on your IT Pro membership. Like I said, I'm Sophie, and I am not alone here. To my left, I have Mr. Don Pizzette. Don, how are you?
I am doing great. You know, starting to head into the winter months, which is nice as far as not being baked alive every single day. But in the technology world, we got a couple of cool articles today because there's stuff that's coming out early, which almost never happens, and a few cybersecurity events to help us remember why working in IT is so rewarding.
That's a word. That's a word for it. But you're right. Anytime it's below like 90 degrees here, I'm like, it's winter. It's cold out. I'll start wearing sweaters and stuff, cosplaying like it's fall. And over on the far side of the desk, Daniel Lowry. Daniel, are you enjoying this cold weather as well?
It is an absolute treat to not sweat through my shirt from the door of the building to my car, which that is not hyperbole.
that is reality.
A true fact of Florida. So yes, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Thank you.
That's the price you pay for living here.
It really is. It is a high, steep price.
No sales tax, but you got to sweat through your shirt. That's just the way that it is. Well, we'll move on from the meteorology discussion, and we'll get into this week's technology news. We're going to start with some news on the Apple side of things. This comes to us from Ars Technica. It says Mac OS 14 Sonoma will release on September 26th, weeks earlier than usual. So it's the first time that a Mac OS update has released in September in, I think, 5 years, since 2018, because I guess usually the iOS update comes out, and then Mac users usually got to wait like a month for their updates. I personally am not a Mac user, so I did not know that, but now I know. Congratulations, Mac users.
And knowing is half the battle.
That is true.
G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
You know, so this is important to us in IT for a few reasons. Not because it's new OS. It actually doesn't have that many new shiny features that we can get super excited about. But for our end users, if you have a non-managed Mac environment, which a lot of people do, a lot of people deploy Macs and they just rely on iCloud and that's it. That means your end users can upgrade their systems whenever they want. And this one's coming fast. So if you have not already vetted your software and so on, this is a chance for you to jump in. Remember that Apple opened up their betas, so you can actually access Sonoma right now and test it out in your environment. I will say, though, that if you don't have managed systems for your Mac, you probably should. You should control when people get these updates so that when Apple just decides willy-nilly to go ahead and I don't know what willy-nilly actually means. I shouldn't have said that. But
that is a weird phrase, isn't it? We just take it for granted nowadays.
Yeah. Who knows what that really means?
Who is Willy and Nilly, and how do they become so
We're in the workplace,
in our
okay?
Speech?
It's William Nilliam.
Oh,
we are in the workplace,
gotcha.
all right?
That's right.
Maybe they were like famous lip syncers.
Yeah.
Either way, when Apple makes a decision to do an early release like this, it won't impact you because you can control it. And you can say, all right, we will hold this upgrade until a certain point. So there are tons of MDM services that are out there to let you manage that. Now, I did say that there weren't a lot of fancy features. So I sifted through all the release notes and stuff so you wouldn't have to. And there were really only two features that I could see that impacted an IT environment. The first is better screen sharing support. So I don't know if any of you listeners out there remember the Apple Remote Desktop utility. It was about $80 in the App Store, and you could buy it, but it worked really well for being able to view the screens of a ton of computers. So if you worked at a university or a high school and you wanted to, say, view the screens of 20 Macs in a lab, Remote Desktop would let you do that. It's not related to Microsoft's Remote Desktop Protocol or RDP. This is completely separate. So they just called it Remote Desktop. Well, now Apple is replacing the built-in screen share, which used to just be VNC. Now it's being replaced with Remote Desktop, and you don't have to buy an $80 app if you just want to screen share a single system. If you want to manage multiple systems, you still have to buy Remote Desktop, and it's still out there. The other thing is they're improving the password manager, so they're continuing to add features there. You can actually create groups of passwords now and share them with other people. So it's becoming almost like a real password manager, right? You know, when it was locked to your keychain, it was only suitable for individuals. Now it's starting to get some businessy type features, which makes us think like, down the road, Apple might be entering that password manager market.
I guess if you live in that Apple ecosphere, that's a nice way to go because then everything's within, that sphere of control.
Yeah.
That's always nice to have. I like password managers, man. I'm just a big fan of that. I love, Sophie was talking about how she was getting these prompts about, her Teams and her Microsoft account. So she just changed her password. She didn't even care. Right. And I literally did this yesterday because I spun up a new machine. I need to log into Teams. So I was like, I don't care. Just get my Bitwarden up here and everything's changed. I don't care. I don't even know what my passwords are anymore.
Yeah.
Like
I can use the generator and I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm good to go.
This has become such a low stress activity anymore. I'm like, yep, password changed, no problem. Go for it.
I've caught myself looking at those passwords before and going, ooh, that would suck to type.
Yeah, but they just make our lives so much easier now. So it's just nice to start seeing that as like something that we consider just normal at this point. I think that's something that we consider normal at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't know that I'd be willing to go in on Apple's just because it's so locked in. Like,
right.
I don't know there's any way you can use Apple's password manager on a Windows machine.
Yeah,
for example.
That's a great point. Like if I'm, because I use Linux, I use Windows, I use Mac, I use all three.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I, if I wanted to just be in that Mac world, I want to use that Apple password manager, how would I then translate that to other devices?
Yep. So right now you'd have to go all in.
Right.
But I wouldn't be surprised to see down the road if they start releasing this, with support for other OSs. Yeah.
You think does Microsoft have one? They have like a password manager that they use?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have their authenticator app,
right?
Which you can. Well, no, that won't do passwords, will it?
Yeah.
No,
I'm
I don't think they do. Yeah.
They usually jump on like everything that everybody else is doing.
Well, we're going to hear about Microsoft a little bit later, and so maybe they decided they're just not ready to take on that responsibility.
They're not up to the task. By the way, I did look up willy-nilly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a it doesn't come from anything. It's not standing for anything. It's just a whimsical phrase.
All right.
Meant to add some humor to something that means haphazardly.
And it's not related to Milli Vanilli at all?
No.
Huh.
No.
Surprise.
Huh.
That's a sad story, by the way.
It certainly is.
Like, that is a sad story. Watch the behind the music on Milli
I've not
Vanilli.
seen that.
Yeah.
So apparently you can use the Authenticator app as a password manager. I did not know that. It gives you the option to. If you're already using it for two-factor and stuff like that, you can export your passwords from whatever you're using, Bitwarden or Google or whatever, and
but
put
it
them in
begs
there.
the question still, like, okay, that's cool. And maybe if I'm like totally marked out for Microsoft, or I'm totally marked out for Apple, that I would use that. But in real life, I mean, we all kind of like bounce around different ecosystems. I think even the average person might even be doing it at this point. A browser-based third party just seems like the better way to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Although I'll say, like, I use, so like at our day job, right? We got Bitwarden for our corporate passwords, but I have dual factor on my Bitwarden login. Yeah. And it's my Microsoft Authenticator app that I use for that. So I end up using two sort of password managers. Yeah. One's really just that Authenticator app though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, like, Google and Microsoft Edge have options for password managers. I know that's definitely still easier than using one that's, for instance, like Apple's password manager, because like you guys were saying, that's exclusive to Apple, and so you're kind of screwed if you're using Windows. So browser-based ones are great, but I definitely think that like Bitwarden, it has the app. Bitwarden I can use in any browser, so I don't have to worry about, like, if I decide tomorrow I don't like Google Chrome anymore, I want to switch to Edge or Firefox. Right. I don't have to worry about porting stuff over. I can just log into Bitwarden.
I guess browser-based is a bad way of putting it. It's more like a cloud service.
Sure.
Like, think of it as a cloud service, and it doesn't matter whether I'm using the app or a browser plugin. Yeah. I have access to no matter where I am. I sound like I'm shilling for Bitwarden at this point.
We have a Bitwarden t-shirt.
Are you
we'll
tired
bring it in.
of it? Yeah, I got to throw my Bitwarden swag on. All of a sudden a hat shows up. I got a pair of Bitwarden shoes. It's like people only do stuff because they get paid. And that's just sad.
If we want fair and balanced though, like I do prefer 1Password to Bitwarden.
Yeah, that's right. You're a big fan of that.
Yeah. So, but I use 1Password for my personal and Bitwarden for my work. So like you can choose more than one if you want.
I know Sophia loves LastPass.
My fave. My fave. It's like Caleb's still drinking out of that cup. The LastPass cup that we got from that's his go-to now. So I thought that was we're supporting them in whatever way we can. We know it's a tough time for them. Yeah. We're just not using their product.
Yeah.
So
they got a long road to hoe to get that trust back.
They
don't
do.
They? Yeah.
They do. Yeah. It's gonna be fun for them. We'll go ahead and move on. I hate to rag on them too much. we finally got out of that where we had articles about LastPass every week. So we'll move on. This next article is a little bit more about hardware. This comes to us from Tom's Hardware. Shocker. It says Thunderbolt 5 debuts 120 gigabit, right?
It is gigabit.
I'm tired. Gigabit per second speed is 3 times faster than previous gen. And when Dom was going over these articles with us, he said debuts, and I forgot that debuts was a word for a second. So that was going to be a fun article intro. So this is it's a lot faster, I guess, than the previous generation, and faster is generally good, right?
Yeah,
unless you're talking about beatings.
Yeah.
The beatings happen faster here.
It's over quicker, yeah.
Well,
I
guess
mean the
there's that.
frequency.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So, I think it is an expectation that when a new iteration of this stuff comes out, that it should be faster or have more bandwidth. It should be able to run, do all the things the $6 million man could do. In this case, it delivers on that. But there is one thing aside from the speed and all that that I want to highlight that gets kind of glossed over. It gets glossed over in the Tom's Hardware article, but in some other things. When Thunderbolt first came out, a lot of people thought it was a Mac technology. Like, this is an Apple thing. But it wasn't. It was just Apple was the only company willing to pay for it. It was an Intel proprietary technology, and Intel was charging $1 per port for you to have a port that was Thunderbolt capable on your system. Well, Apple said, okay, well, $2 a system, and we'll add 2 ports to our laptops, and now our customers get fast ports. But other people like Gigabyte and Asus and stuff said, screw that, $2 per system, and we generate hundreds of thousands of systems. We're not going to pay all that to Intel. And so they didn't adopt it. Well, that held Thunderbolt back for years and years and years. And then when you get to today, USB-C and Thunderbolt are very close, right? So Thunderbolt's lost a bit of its edge, still really fast, and still has some features that make it more attractive than standard USB-C. But Intel has actually donated the spec to the USB IF Standards Committee. So they've donated it. So that cost of $1 per port on a system is gone. So anybody can adopt Thunder. I keep wanting to say FireWire. I'm going to stop every time I have to stop myself from saying FireWire.
Yeah, that's not a thing anymore, Don.
So now anytime Asus or somebody wants to add a Thunderbolt port to their system, they can do it without that licensing fee. And that's a big deal. And so that means that we're going to start seeing more systems adopt Thunderbolt, and where it really shines, it's fast, right? And that helps with storage. But where it really shines is when you get to high density monitors, like 8K monitors, it does a phenomenal job. If you want to have more than one monitor running off a single cable, that's hard to do with USB-C. But with Thunderbolt, it can do it. And with Thunderbolt 5, it's going to be able to do it really, really fast. So it's neat the way that it works. It's got these lanes of traffic inside of it. And if you've ever been to like Seattle or Atlanta where they have express lanes that go in one direction in the morning and at night they go in the other direction. So during rush hour, they help people get into town or out of town at the right times. That's how Thunderbolt 5 works, is you could have 3 lanes downloading and 1 lane uploading if you were doing heavy downloads, or the other way around if you're doing heavy uploads.
So it's like a smart feature, right? Like it has some technology inside of it that goes, hey, it looks like they're wanting to download more, or it looks like they're trying to upload something more. Now so engage the logic gates.
And think about what you're using on USB. I mean, well, yeah, really.
Yeah.
If you're connecting to a monitor, that's entirely an output. You're uploading to the monitor. If you got an external hard drive, you're normally reading from that. Yep. So it can be flexible. But yeah, I can't help it when you say like, so it's a smart thing. I'm like, it's a smart bug.
Yeah, it's a smart. Frankly, madam, I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
Can't go without a Starship Troopers reference. That's important.
I love that.
I wish I understood.
Would you like to know more?
Should I add that to the list?
Starship Troopers is like it was like a novel or something, right?
Yeah.
And then they made a movie out of it, which was not quite.
No, it didn't line up with the book very well.
They never
now
follow the books like they should. But
it was very
campy, still an entertaining flick, though. It's got Neil Patrick Harris.
I was just going to say Neil Patrick Harris.
You can't go wrong with Neil Patrick Harris and Jeremy.
It made his career.
Or, Michael Ironsides. It made his career. Actually, you say that. That was kind of like when he had started to get back into acting at that point, and I think it wasn't too long after that he did Harold and Kumar.
Harold and Kumar was what really brought him back. Yeah. When people were like, wait, this guy has a sense of humor.
Yeah, he's funny. Like really funny.
Yeah.
He might have been funnier than Harold and Kumar.
and Casper Van Diem, right? I mean, his career skyrocketed afterwards.
Yeah. Did it? Okay, I believe you.
No, that was kind of like the last good thing he did.
Okay. I didn't know the name, but that for me, if I don't know the name of an actor, that could just be because I was born too late. So
Casper Van Diem
doesn't mean anything.
Was killing it for a while, and then all of a sudden
he was gone.
He just.
So you're saying Starship Troopers sent his career in the pooper, is what you're saying?
I don't know if it did that, because I don't think that would have been the thing that killed his career. It's probably some dumb decision after that.
Okay. I see. You said Starship Troopers, and I was thinking Super Trooper, and that's a different thing.
Oh, different thing.
It's
Yeah,
a totally different thing.
I am all that is mad.
You know what it's like when these boys get the syrup in them.
Speaking of movies, when you guys were talking about, when you said Thunderbolt 5 and, oh, it's faster and it's better, all I could think of was like, it sounds like the blockbuster flick of the summer, like Thunderbolt 5 coming to a theater near you.
Thunderbolt 5,000.
Your data versus the Russians.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, that's kind of the thing, though, right?
Yeah.
Your data versus the Russians.
That's
It's
our
not
life.
far off from the plot of a real live thing.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought of because I wasn't familiar with Thunderbolt 5 till you guys were talking about it. So that's kind of what popped into my head. Thank you for humoring me. Appreciate that. Thunderbolt 5, Too Fast, Too Furious. But yeah, it's faster. Faster generally means better.
When can we expect Thunderbolt 5 in theaters, Don?
Good question.
It's going to be a summer tent pole for next year.
Yeah. It's perfect.
Okay, good to know. So yeah, keep an eye on your local cinemas for that one.
It's all Thunderbolt 5.
Just watch Tom's Hardware for more updates, I guess. I don't know. We'll go ahead and move on from that, from the Thunderbolt 5 news. This is going to be switching us into the realm of cloud. We got this from Slashdot. It says Google extends lifespan of Chromebooks with 10-year update policy. So they're pushing back that expiration date of Chromebooks. And I guess I totally forgot about this, but Chromebooks are used so much in schools that I can see why maybe people would start to get concerned, like if we're relying on these for a lot of the work the students are doing, and there's kind of an expiration date on that. Yikes.
Yeah, so there are a lot of big corporations right now that, I'm saying right now, this has probably been true for a long time, that are doing some really shady business practices, and consumers are getting burned left and right, and people are getting kind of fed up with it. And there was a whole debacle this week about the Unity 3D engine changing their license. There was a huge revolt, and this kind of thing keeps happening over and over and over again. Well, Google had a minor incident like this several years ago when they announced their auto update expiration policy. So when Chromebooks first came out, they were super attractive to schools. Schools loved it. That for $300, you could get a laptop that did everything that a student needed to do and was built to pretty high standards. And the parts were inexpensive, so they were easy to maintain. If you broke a screen, it wasn't such a big deal. A number of vendors started manufacturing them. HP, Dell, Asus, they all had Chromebooks that were out there. And Google was actually selling their own, which I think were actually manufactured by Asus, but branded as Google. So a lot of options, a lot of schools adopted them. And the best thing about them was they didn't take a lot to update because they really were just like the Chrome browser on a stripped down version of Linux. And so they would automatically update and things were great. And then Google came out with this auto update expiration. They said, you know what? Whether the laptop still works or not, we're going to expire the device at a certain time. And when that happens, you'll no longer be able to get updates. And we'll turn off some of our room management stuff for it too. So there's that.
I'm sure they didn't do that for, because they wanted you to go buy another one. It was for, legitimate purposes.
Yeah. So
they
then
legitimately wanted more profits.
Schools start looking at this and they're like, wait a minute. So there's a scenario where I could have a perfectly functional device and you've shut off security updates. And now it's not secure. I can't have that in my environment. You've effectively just arbitrarily killed off this device and created e-waste, because it's not like you can even resell it. Like, it's no longer a supported device. It's no longer getting updates. It's dead in the water. And a lot of people were upset about that, but Google somehow managed to fight that off for a while until now. And it was really the e-waste argument that pushed this hard. Is Google is trying to be an environmentally friendly company. And I don't understand the whole thing with carbon credits and all that, but they buy the hell out of them. And so, they try and do that. But then to just be expiring these devices in such a short period of time seemed unfair. And so they have decided to change that policy, and they've moved it to 10 years now. So when you get a Chromebook, and this is not from the date you purchase it, it's from the date they started manufacturing it. That was the real problem, was some people would buy one that had been manufactured for years and would only have like 2 years of life left on it, and then it would expire. Well, now they're saying from the date manufacturer starts on a model, they'll support it for 10 years. And I think that's a pretty reasonable number. Yeah. So if you're buying like used Chromebooks that are 6 or 7 years old, you still have some support window in there. And the odds of one of these things lasting 10 years anyway is pretty low.
Yeah, we see like laptops, like expensive laptops, come back into our building from people that have left the company, or the warranty's about to expire, so we upgrade them to a new machine. And I don't know if y'all know this, but people act like laptops owe them money. They're trying to get it out of them. I do not understand how people treat their device.
You know, the Macs are the worst.
So bad.
It's not the Mac's fault. It's the user's fault.
It's the user's fault.
They've got the aluminum case, and these systems will come back with dents in them.
Yeah.
Like, how did you dent this thing?
Frisbee with your dog with this? What is going on?
And 8 pounds of stickers.
Yeah.
Sophie.
Hey, Earl, I need something to
I'm sorry.
Yeah, somebody's guilty of that one.
I'll get them off. I promise. I'll take them off eventually.
At least it's not
You don't
the
have to take them off
aluminum
now.
case.
You have to take them
That's
off when
true.
you're fired.
Yeah.
That's true. So I got 2 weeks.
Yeah. That's about how long it'll take you.
Yeah, no kidding. That's gonna be filling my time here. Yeah, but you're right. It's not the aluminum, so maybe it'll be easier for me.
Maybe.
I don't know. It doesn't take damage as easily.
Maybe. We'll see.
Maybe. Yeah,
It's
remains to be
probably
seen.
bonded to the coating on the outside of that laptop.
You've been with me for a long time. They mean a
I tried to take
lot.
the sticker off and it just peeled the case open.
We had that happen. I don't want to disparage. Well, I kind of do want to disparage.
go for
brands.
it. Why not?
System 76. Like,
Oh, yeah.
their laptops are made out of tissue paper.
They really are.
So
Like
good.
they would break so bad.
Yeah. Yep.
System
I mean, they would
76, you said?
run.
Yeah.
They would still run, but they are just like they
they
look
make-
like they were rode hard and put away wet. Man, it's like really
Yeah.
rough.
They make laptops that are tailor designed to run Linux. They're actually just off-the-shelf laptops that they've made sure there's Linux drivers for everything.
That they stuck Fan 5000 in. It's like,
yeah.
like if you want your laptop to levitate, you get yourself a System 76.
Yeah. There's no doubt. If you ever like walk out of a room and you think, did I leave my computer on? If it's a System 76, you know.
There's no doubt.
You can hear the
You
fan.
just hear that fan whirring away.
Everything that's coming up is that it's bad. Yeah. Huge disappointment with System 76. System 76 is a huge scam. Okay. Well,
They're not a
They're
scam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, that's Reddit, so you get to with a grain of salt. Yeah.
So let me. I feel like we need to defend the brand a little bit. They actually do a really good job of picking hardware that there are absolutely Linux drivers for. Right, you can take any System 76 device and throw Ubuntu on it, and 100% of the hardware will work out of the box.
And their prices were reasonable as well. Like we spent for what we got for our System 76 versus the MacBook Pros.
Oh, definitely compared to a Mac.
It was like half the price. It was crazy. And we were getting more hardware out of it. So same gen processor, but like I think mine had 32 gigs of RAM in it, and it cost us $1,500.
Yeah,
maybe
it depended
somewhere around
on you could push it up higher on some of them, but
1 terabyte drives, NVMe's. It was like it was a nice system. Other than if you dropped it at all, like
it shattered.
So it's just that the stickers don't cooperate well with System 76. That's the main issue.
It's not sticker friendly. It's Linux friendly, not sticker friendly.
What is a laptop if not a vessel for stickers? What's the point?
Apparently.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a
Well, anyway,
philosophy some people have.
has nothing to do with Chromebooks. Sorry, I got distracted.
Yeah, we have drifted. All the Chromebooks run Linux, so it's
They do.
Oh, there you go.
All comes
There's
back
the-
around,
That's the
full
6
circle.
degrees of
Yeah.
separation there. Well, we'll go ahead and take a break really quick now that we've finished this riveting discussion about laptop stickers. But we'll be back in the second half of Technado with more security news, so don't go away. Tired of trying to schedule your team's time around in-person learning? Isn't it a bummer to spend thousands of dollars on travel for professional development? What if we said you can save money and time and still provide your team with the best training possible? The answer to your woes is live online training from ACI Learning. With live online training, we provide our top in-person courses in private, online, instructor-led formats. You get to provide professional development in a manner that fits today's expectations. Entertaining, convenient, and effective. Our exam-aligned courses inspire the full potential of your team. Visit virtual instructor-led training at ACI Learning for more info. Welcome back for more Technado. Going to be getting into some security news here in just a second. Just want to remind y'all, if you're watching from YouTube and you like this video, go ahead and toss a like and feel free to comment below. Let us know what you liked about what we've covered so far. But we'll go ahead and jump into the security news because that's my favorite part of the show, and I just am so excited. And we've got our first segment, which is my favorite segment. Let's see if I can do this.
Don't.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, so, do.
You never tell if that's a positive or negative reaction.
It's so punctuated. You gotta get
It's
it.
gotta be drawn out.
Dough. Yeah.
Well, I'll have a second chance to do it in a
Start
little
working
bit
on it.
because we've got a double dough today, a dodo, if you will. Yes.
Got a second chance.
So we will start with this one from the Hacker News. It says Microsoft AI researchers accidentally expose 38 terabytes of confidential data. Now I'm a little behind on the sizes of data as we covered last week with the Goaty Bite or Gotti Bite or Yodi Bite or whatever it's called.
Yoda
Yeah,
Bite.
Yoda Bite. Yeah, whatever it was.
The Teflon Don bite.
You come in here on the day of my software update. So
You do not call me Godfather.
but 38 terabytes, that's maybe comparatively it's not anymore, but that seems like a lot.
It's a lot,
Okay.
right? And so just to put it into a normal, something we can kind of measure, I think your average decent laptop today probably has a 1 terabyte hard drive in it. So this is 38 laptops worth of data. Your average SQL database is probably between like 1 and 2 terabytes, depending on the type of data, but your average stuff is pretty small.
Literally had 2 laptop
Yeah, it did.
backups in it, like full backups.
And that's the whole thing's embarrassing for Microsoft, right? But the fact that the types of data that were leaked out, and it all came down to permissions. Now, we hear all the time about companies that have Amazon S3 buckets that they thought like, oh, the name will hide it. I don't need to create any real security. We'll just leave it wide open. The public can access the whole S3 bucket. Who's going to find it? And then, Shodan and all these other different systems come in and find it, and here it is, and all the data gets leaked out. So that happens all the time, and we hear about Amazon S3. Well, this time, it is the Azure Blob Storage equivalent of that. So one of Microsoft's AI researchers was using blob storage in Azure, and they had the permissions configured wrongly for something. And in a public GitHub repository, they posted some links so that you could go and download some information on some of their AI models, right? I think you actually download the models themselves. And they were just linking to 2 files. But once researchers followed those links, they found like, wait a minute, yeah, these link into some blob storage, and I technically have access to the entire blob, and not just read access, read-write access to the entire stinking blob. And then,
Raggy.
yeah, which, at least you can't execute things directly out of the blob.
Right.
So that removes a little bit of risk there. But either way, the whole thing was opened wide, and there was so much data in there. Like Daniel mentioned, there were 2 entire laptop backups that were in there. A lot
Which contained like secrets and keys and passwords and all sorts of stuff.
As they would, yeah.
It was a lovely little gift to any hacker.
Yep. So pretty significant. Now on a positive,
yeah,
Microsoft has said we've dug through all of our logs, all of our audit records, and so on, and no one aside from the security researcher accessed this other data.
Yeah, this was all through responsible disclosure that they discovered this.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And then they closed off access to it. They fixed the permissions and then verified nobody else had access.
One might even be as bold to say is that this was a security win, right? Because there's never going to be a perfect security. We're always going to make mistakes, right? But what we want to do is find those mistakes before the hackers do, and then do things about them so that we can, that was a problem. And now we've learned a little bit more about our system. We can build a more robust security system, which I do believe they have implemented new security features because of this responsible disclosure.
Yeah. And, when it's something like a 0 day, right, and it was responsibly disclosed,
just a tire fire.
But you have to ask, like, all right, well, the researcher found it, but what's to say adversaries hadn't found it years before?
That's true,
right? Because they're not going to disclose it,
right? And just because they didn't find any log evidence that they had been breached due to this, doesn't mean it hasn't happened.
But in this case, it's not like a 0 day. It's just permissions were configured poorly, and it exposed access to a lot of stuff. So when Microsoft says they're implementing fixes on this, most of it's actually not like software controls. It's policy controls around that. And Amazon went through the same thing where they said, hey, for now on,
we should
S3
stop
buckets,
making them wide open to the world.
By default?
By default, yeah.
So,
maybe that's a bad idea.
Maybe.
Because I've noticed this trend, Don, where people don't actually go back and set more secure permissions.
It's odd.
That's weird.
It's odd. Once they see things are working, that's good enough, right?
Yeah. That's kind of their litmus test on whether or not it's good.
Yeah. So while this one, we could describe as a security win, it is still extremely embarrassing because the AI researcher is somebody who's very knowledgeable. This isn't like Tom, the mail clerk, right? So we would expect this to be a person who's very knowledgeable and leaking out just a treasure trove of data, potentially.
We'll call it a tie. We'll call it a tie. Right? Yeah.
It nets out.
You had a big problem there. It's a little yolk on your face there, but you quickly wiped it off, and you don't look too bad. So.
And like you said, they made changes. It sounds like they're expanding their secret scanning service to scan for more things so that they can kind of catch stuff like this in the future. And then I guess they also found a bug in their scanning system, so they were able to rectify that as well. So good on them. And Tom, the mail clerk, if you're watching, I think you're smart. I think you're kind, and I think you're important. And I just want to put that out there.
You're good enough. You're smart enough. And
gosh darn it, people like you.
there you go.
That one I don't know.
That is
SNL.
Daily Affirmations with Stuart Smalley.
Huh. Okay, maybe I'll add that to the list.
That's
Maybe.
SNL.
Maybe I'll add it. Okay, so
Al
it's only a few
Franken,
minutes.
yeah.
Okay.
Senator Al Franken.
Senator Al Franken.
Huh. All right. See, I'm before my time.
That's
So
when we start electing ours. Anyway,
okay. We'll go
we
ahead.
just like celebrity politicians.
We'll pivot. We'll pivot because I can tell this is a
It's gonna
sensitive
go off the
topic.
rails.
It's just funny to me. Like
Just don't bring up Sonny
right?
Bono.
I love the scene in Back to the Future where, well, who's the president in 1985? Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, the actor? I suppose the first one is Jane Wyman. Jerry Lewis is secretary, whatever. You know, it's like, it's going on. It's like, that's not far from true there, Doc.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize this was a sensitive topic.
It's just
for y'all.
funny.
It's just
It's not sensitive. It's
I'm just waiting for
funny.
President Camacho.
Dude, I cannot wait until, I mean, technically a WWE superstar has been
Hey.
president because Donald Trump is in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he is?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes, he is.
Today I learned.
Yes, you
On
did.
Technado, I learned.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, you could say Camacho has been president at this
Yeah.
point in some weird way.
I think
I want Terry Crews.
Terry Crews, yes.
In full Camacho to win the presidency. I will vote for you, Terry.
I'm so glad you said that because we know Terry's watching, so
Yeah.
he's got the message now.
Anybody that's got Terry's ear, let him know. Daniel's got his back.
Thank God. You're going to make all the difference. You're going to tip the scales in his favor. So like I said, we do actually have we've got a double dough today. I don't know that we need to run the intro again unless you'd like to hear that lovely little song. But I am going to try my hand again at doing the noise. So we'll go ahead and just try this again. Do!
Do, re, mi, fa,
Much
sol, la,
better.
ti, do, so.
Go!
Improvement. Significant improvement. Awesome. Well, I say significant. I inserted that myself. Anyway, okay. So this is Doe Part 2. Comes to us from the Register. Square blames last week's outage on DNS screw up. So I did not realize that this was going on until after it had already been resolved because I hadn't been in any local coffee shops that week.
Yeah.
But they do use that Square payment
I wasn't
system.
buying from a street,
you're-
one of those like lunch trucks or whatever they are.
I didn't buy any
Yeah.
graphic tees that week, so I
Yeah,
didn't,
yeah.
I didn't have the opportunity to use that payment system. But if you're not familiar with it, it's you go into a store and they've got that little iPad looking thing set up and they spin it around and you choose a tip and you sign. That's what we're talking about. There was an outage that impacted quite a few businesses and it has since been resolved. But what exactly was it that went wrong? It was a DNS screw up. What does that mean?
All right. So, I keep an eye out for some of these companies because, and I'll give you a great example, is PayPal. I am shocked and amazed that PayPal has been in business for over 20 years and not had a breach. It's just amazing to me that they created what is modern online payment systems.
They did.
Right. And this is where
Correct
Elon
me if
Musk
I'm
got
right.
his money.
Elon Musk,
Yep.
right? That's how he got famous and rich.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so to have been on the cutting edge of it in the very beginning seems like you'd be the one to make mistakes. Seems like somewhere along the line, so you had nobody to base your model off of. You were inventing things from scratch. At some point, there's got to be a breach, right? And yet somehow they've made it this far without it. And hopefully I'm not jinxing them and tomorrow they get breached or whatever. But to me, organizations that do financial processing, that seems like it would be target number one for an attacker. Here's real money that we can get and mess with, not like fake Bitcoin or whatever. This is like real dollars that we can access. So Square,
Fake money like Bitcoin.
yeah. So Square is a payment processor. If you're going to open up a small business, sometimes it's difficult to get on with an actual payment processor. And so Square acts like a middleman for that. And they have hardware for doing credit card scanning. And so it's a super convenient way to do a point of sale system. So they're all over the place and it's real dollars. So I keep an eye out for this because they're another one that would be a high target, especially with so many unsecured endpoints just across the world for their customers. Well, they had an outage. And when I first heard about it, my immediate thought was, whoop, here it is.
Ruh-roh.
Let's keep an eye on this one. So I've been watching, and the details, they've finally released the details. They had their root cause analysis that was released. And this one turned out to be an honest mistake. that
just a misconfiguration.
Yeah, misconfiguration. They were rolling out some new functionality. They were doing a deployment. They were moving some database servers, and as a part of that, they updated some DNS zones.
They checked everybody's PayPal accounts, right?
Yeah.
Make sure that no one got a large deposit before the, quote unquote misconfiguration occurred.
Well, now here's the screw up, and I could totally see this happening, and I can just tell they had to have a sinking feeling in their gut when it happened. When they messed up the DNS zone, they couldn't look up server names anymore, and then they couldn't access their servers,
Right.
and they couldn't access the DNS servers to fix them because
that seems like a problem.
They had a high reliance on name lookups, and if you think about like IPv6, we don't memorize IP addresses anymore. We don't even catalog them anymore because who cares what the address is? It's in DNS. We just need to know the name of the server when we connect to it.
It's always DNS.
All right, so I'm not the biggest fan of the register where this article came from, but at the very end of the article, they mention a haiku. And the haiku is, it's not DNS. There's no way it's DNS. It was DNS.
It's always DNS. Isn't that a meme? Isn't it? It's always DNS. Isn't that a meme?
I used to say if you have Active Directory problems, it's always DNS. That was just true for a long time, likely still true today. But especially in the early days of Active Directory, DNS was so critical. But in this case, they learned a lesson.
0 days since it was DNS.
That's funny.
That is funny.
So in this case, though, it really highlighted a problem with their infrastructure, that they were so dependent on name lookups functioning that they didn't plan for a name lookup failure.
I'm sorry, there's another one that says the prophecy, it shall be DNS Nostradamus.
Well, they have since done some re-architecting. They've made it where they have out-of-band management that's not dependent on DNS. Great. Their DNS servers are now isolated, so product rollouts and deployments don't impact their DNS servers. And just in general, they've made some improvements there. So they brought it back online. It is still considered a security incident.
That is a good point to make there, Don, because if they didn't have any kind of attack, how do we label this security?
All right. Remember the CIA triad?
Yes.
Right? And I'm not talking about the
confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
That is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the CIA.
Yes.
The Central Intelligence Agency. There we go. Yeah. Not talking about them. We're talking about
confidentiality. This was a CIA attack, a state-sponsored?
Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Those are the three things that security provides. And we always think about C&I, right? Confidentiality. We don't want unauthorized people to get access to our data. And we think about integrity. We don't want unauthorized people to tamper with our data. But then there's availability. We need to keep the systems online.
We do.
And in this case, they did not. This was an availability issue, and that's why it's a security incident.
So interesting. I actually had this conversation with Wes the other day. We were talking about, is availability, so if something goes down, is that necessarily under CIA? Because CIA, when we think of CIA, at least when I do, and maybe I'm way off on this. I could be completely wrong. But my idea is that CIA is specifically security focused, right? That when we talk about confidentiality, we mean the breach of confidentiality. When we talk about availability or integrity, is that things are coming from an unknown source or spoofing and that kind of stuff. The integrity of it is different. Something's been changed. Either the source or the data itself has been changed through an attack. And availability is also, again, security means attack. And then there's risk, which is different. And at least, again, this is in the interworkings of Daniel's mind. So I love that we get to bring this up because I want to question you on this, Don, and what you think is, if it wasn't an attack, is it just under the rubric of risk and not necessarily under security and risk? Because a meteor could hit right the building and it goes down, but that's not a security failure, right? That's just risk.
So I actually go through this with our day job because we are ISO 27001 certified,
yes,
right? Which is an IT security.
Shameless plug.
So as part of our ISMS, our Information Security Management System, ISMS, according to our ISMS policy, we define what a security incident is. And so we've defined criteria around it. And a downtime like this, according to our policy, is a security incident. And so we on the ISMS committee made that decision. I made that decision. So that will be a security policy. Now, our auditor that comes to audit us for ISO 27001, they look at the incident reports that we fill out. And so like we had an infrastructure outage and they looked at it and they said, well, that's not a security incident. And I said, well, according to you, that's not, but according to our
because you
policy,
defined it as a security incident, right?
Yep. And, you know,
so it's subjective.
If we were a massive organization with a dedicated SOC, right? You know, a security operations center. If we had a CISO who was specifically responsible, then we might split it out.
Yeah.
But the way it is right now, where there's a lot of shared responsibility for security,
makes sense to put it together.
It makes sense to keep it together.
So this is going to be one of those it depends kind of things. Interesting. I like this.
Yeah.
This is fun.
There's no law on this, right? Not in the U.S. at least, where they tell you this counts as an incident. Like in Europe, you have GDPR, and so they do define some of the stuff that counts as an incident. But in the U.S., we don't have that. And so it really is up to us to define what it is.
Do you think, just Don Pizzette's personal opinion, philosophically, that like an accidental outage is a security incident per se?
I do. I'm a hardliner on this one.
Interesting. And what makes you think that?
So let's go accidental outage, right?
Yeah.
To me, an accidental outage, it could be a bad design, right?
True.
So it's just a bad design. It's not our fault. It could be a bad product.
Yeah.
But a bad design, how did that happen? Did we not use the right people to come up with that design? Did we use people who weren't properly skilled or trained to do that design? Or, let's take this DNS stuff. Did somebody have privilege to change something that they shouldn't have had privilege to change?
Gotcha.
Right? Was there supposed to be a change management ticket and they didn't do that and it was an unauthorized change?
So contextually, it could be, because if a meteor hits, that's obviously not. Right. A hurricane comes through and blows our building away.
Yep.
That's not a security incident. That's a...
Did they...
God getting mad.
Maybe they were supposed to test the change in staging and didn't and went straight to production.
Yeah.
Or, maybe there's a misconfiguration that allows them to authorize their own change. I see that in GitHub sometimes.
Yeah.
And so
that is a security problem, yes.
It is. And it's so on the edge that I'm just like, screw it, put it in security.
Oh.
And that way we're covered. You get better safe than sorry.
I feel like this has been a very fruitful conversation, sir.
Yeah.
Really quick before we move on to our next article, you had mentioned at the beginning of this when we were talking about this outage how PayPal's never had a breach, and it impressed you because it's like they've been around for so long and they kind of started this whole thing. I looked it up. They did have a breach at the end of 2022. It was a bunch of customer information, I guess, was exposed and credentials. So they had one breach, but still in what you said, 20 years.
Yeah, that's not a bad track record.
That it sounds like they resolved. I think maybe they were all in some kind of lawsuit regarding it, like the way they handled it. But they resolved
mail
it.
Spiders to people.
Yes. Yeah, we need a repeat of that.
Yeah,
so anyway,
what was they saying? Like horrible things.
Horrible things.
Yeah. Anyway,
but that's very impressive though for them to be around that long with no.
Rewind to 2004, which might be before you were born. It's
legal
not,
adult.
But rewind to 2004, where the internet was still young. The .com boom had died at that point. A lot of companies went out of business. But if you were an online credit card processor in 2004, that was the Wild West. And maybe they just didn't report their breaches.
Yeah.
But
true.
It's impressive.
It wasn't. There's different times.
Different times.
Sophia, what year were you born?
Back in my day.
No, don't say that on the air. No.
I don't know about that one, Chief.
See, I think
I don't know about. Also, you know how old I am. You can do the math.
Speaking
I don't
of
actually know. You're 20-something.
Speaking of accidentally giving out information, that's a good segue to our next article.
That is true. That is true.
It was all planned, ladies and gentlemen.
Don is ready to move on. So this next article is part of another favorite segment here on Technado called Who Got Pwned?
Looks like you're about to get pwned.
Fatality.
Yeah!
The director had that one in the chamber. That was like right away. So this comes to us from Engadget. It says, hackers claim it only took a 10-minute phone call to shut down MGM Resorts. Now, I know on last week's episode, I know at least on YouTube, we got comments about, you guys got to talk about the MGM breach. And I think it happened like right as we published last week's episode. So we are talking about it. And new information has come out that it was really just, it was this ransomware group that they were phenomenally talented at social engineering. And it took them, it sounds like, supposedly all of 10 minutes on a phone call with help desk to carry this out.
Yeah. Now, full disclosure, we're going to use some unverified information.
Supposedly, allegedly.
Yeah. That's why I'd be at work today. But this is a lot of unconfirmed information, right? Hackers don't go out of their way to prove they did what they did. And so we have a hacking group that is claiming responsibility for this and that it was very trivial for them to do it. Now, what's going on is MGM, not the old Disney World park, but the casino in Las Vegas has had their system compromised, and ransomware spread throughout their environment. Their IT systems have been down, and it has impacted guests and casino revenue. Casinos make a ton of money. They are rumored to be losing $8 million a day during the security incident. They are not the first casino to be hit in recent times. Caesars Casino was hit a couple of months ago, and again,
it's very common to go after casinos because of all the money they have, right?
So here's where we're going to get a little bit unconfirmed. So I'm gonna say some things that I don't necessarily have a factual basis on. So I want to be clear about that. Yeah. But it is heavily rumored in the security community that Caesars Casino paid the ransom. That they paid $15 million to get their systems back.
Nice.
And that sends a message. That sends a message to attackers that, hey, these casinos are willing to pay that kind of money, and they've got that kind of money, and they're ready to do it. And so I would not be surprised to see more casinos start to fall in the next couple of months, because once you've flown that flag and said, I'm willing to pay a ransom, you're now a target.
Yeah, yeah. And I do find it interesting that they are holding out if they're losing $8 million a day. I mean, what did they say what the ransom was? I didn't see any number on exactly what the ransom that they were looking for.
I don't believe they've disclosed that.
Yeah. So let's say it was $15 million. 2 days caps that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if they're just like kind of like what you're saying, Don, where if you finally raise the white flag and say, I give, here's your money, then you paint yourself a target. So they're just going, come at me, bro. Hack away. Or keep that data. I'm not paying anything, because if I do, then I'm going to have to do this again.
Yeah.
So it's worth it in the short term, in the long term, to just weather the storm, so that you'll leave us alone knowing we won't pay.
Yeah.
Right. So this is interesting strategy. I would love to be in on that meeting on, are we going to pay? Or are we not going to pay? How are we going to handle this?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough call.
Yeah.
And you don't, like, the US has a policy to not pay ransoms for human prisoners, but data prisoners we don't really have like a defined thing for. It's interesting, and this one gets more complex because MGM, and Caesars both, were OCTA customers.
Oh,
and OCTA is like one of the leading companies,
one of the leading leaders,
if not the leading company in identity management, right? So handling credentials and authentication and stuff. We've interviewed some of the security researchers over the years, and very talented people. They know more about this stuff than just about anybody. But there have been several recent attacks where hackers have been able to compromise super admins for an account. So when you open up an account with Okta, the very first account, and usually there'll probably be 2 or 3 of these, are super admins. They have full access to everything, and then you create all sorts of roles for everything else that falls underneath it, like billing administrator and regular users and all that. Well, if the attackers can get access to a super administrator set of credentials, that's the keys to the kingdom. They have everything, and that's happened like 5 times in the last couple of months with different companies having their super admins compromised. Now, in each case, it hasn't been due to like Okta's underlying technology. It's been due to social engineering. And what this hacking group, Alpha V, or however we want to say it,
right.
What they're claiming is all they had to do was go on LinkedIn.
I'm just thinking of a furry alien from Melmac.
Alpha.
Yeah.
Just keep your cats safe.
Yeah.
All they had to do was go on LinkedIn, learn about an MGM employee, and then call the MGM help desk and basically get them to walk through resetting. And they had multi-factor authentication. So whatever happened in this 10-minute phone call, they convinced the help desk person on the other end to reset all the multi-factor keys and to reset the password. And somehow the attackers were able to get in and access that account. And then the rest is history. So pretty scary stuff.
We say it's always DNS, but it's always also
the help desk.
Social engineering, right? So I was talking to Ben Fink one time, a friend of ours from OnDefend. He's one of the co-founders of OnDefend, which is a
field pen tester.
Yeah, super smart guy, right? And I was talking about what he normally sees and what gets on the table as far as the contracts go, statement of works, all the really fun stuff you get to do when you engage with somebody as their pen testing firm. And I was talking to him about social engineering, and he goes, it's almost always taken off the table. They say, nope, you can't do a social engineering attack.
Because they know it'll succeed?
He goes, because they know we win every time if we do a social engineering. Like every time SE wins. It's just the water's wet, the sky is blue, social engineering attacks work every time. That's just how it goes. So I'm not super surprised to see that, yes, these monolithic, big system, with tons of money backing their security still getting breached due to social engineering, especially if the hacking group Stock and Trade is being really adept at social engineering. And it just takes that one Billy in your group to be like, okay, I will do this thing that you have asked because you said it so nicely. Let me just now you're in. Okay, everything's good. Okay, you're welcome. I'm glad to be helpful. And you're like, yeah, you're helpful, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I was really hoping you were going to do a rhyme there, like water is wet, the sky is blue. Help desk has your password, and the hackers do too. There was something you could have done.
Leave it in your field. Obviously, you're the poet here.
We got a haiku. We got some free verse.
It's
a very artful
some
episode.
iambic pentameter for the next one.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe.
No
you know
sonnets.
your limits.
Yeah.
Look, if
Come on,
Shakespeare can do it,
yeah.
we can do it.
No, because it's a short. I mean, that gets you so close as a short progression to a musical number,
That's
and we're
right.
not going to do it.
I thought you were going to do like slam poetry.
Yeah.
Spoken word.
Spoken word.
Yeah.
Hey, can we smoke in this building?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Now, what is interesting to me, though, is like...
You've got a beret back there. You can wear it.
That's true. That's true. But casinos have historically, maybe they're not so much anymore. And I don't want to besmirch any of the good names of the casinos out there that make their money in gambling. But they've long been known that they have some connections with mafiosos.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that Mafia would have their own hacking groups be like, they did what now? Okay, get them. You're right.
Like they offer
there would
protection.
be hacking back,
Yeah.
right?
Are the casinos still owned privately like that? I thought they were private equity held now.
Maybe they are.
It was like a whole different kind of...
Yeah, right? They got money and influence.
So
I think they'd be afraid to go after these people and stealing their money.
like the electronic equivalent of like in Goodfellas when they go to Maury's and they've got his head in the oven. That's the equivalent.
That's what I'm
but
talking
virtual.
about here.
Old Maury.
That's right.
I wonder if that's a thing. Interesting.
Right?
Well, I'm gonna look into that. I won't do it now because we'll be here forever. But I'm going to look into that. I love this kind of stuff. So you've put that on my radar now.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. But this is like you were talking about. At the end of the day, social engineering usually succeeds. It kind of seems like, and I feel like as long as there's that human element, we're only human, the flesh and blood, and
we are the weakest link every single
born to make
time.
mistakes, or however the song goes.
And what's kind of funny is the system's kind of typically built. It's really, let me put it this way: it's difficult to patch this and get people because, I worked as a cashier once when I was very young, and this lady brings in a receipt for something, and I look and it says it's not bought at this store. I'm like, well, you didn't buy it here. She's like, it doesn't matter. It's the same store. I'm like, yeah, we're like a franchise, but that's not our store. You bought this there. You need to return it there. Nope, you're gonna return it here, right? I said, I'm not doing it, right? My employee handbook told me do not do this. She's, I want to see your manager. Manager came up, didn't even bother to just chucked me under the bus. Like, no, I'll refund you right now. 2 days later, they're like, they got people running around stores doing refunds, and it's
fake receipts.
Yeah, I'm like, I told you this. And it says that we're not supposed to be doing this anyway. And now we have to have a memo that tells us not to do what our handbook tells us not to do. And you make me the bad guy? Oh, man, whatever.
You were born to be in cybersecurity,
right?
Daniel.
But most people just want to be, no, just help them. Just help them, right? It's not a big deal. Just help them.
You do have to find a balance between security and functionality, right? Like, because the
functionality, yes.
Because we could all make our computers super secure if we just turned them off.
Absolutely. It's a great way to go, actually. Just turn them off, go grow a farm or something.
Ted Kaczynski style and get you a little
shoot
off
at
the
airplanes
grid shack. And
30,000 feet in the
air. How is that the second time at minimum that's come up in here?
Because he was this big, anti-technophile. Like he was a Luddite.
Yeah. But specifically, you're talking about the planes and stuff. It's
just
I
because
vividly
it's absurd
remember.
and funny.
Yes,
you could join an Amish community. There we go. A little less terrorist.
And shoot at planes. Jedediah, get my gun.
Do Amish use guns? I suppose they would, right?
They're anti-violence.
Does that count as technology?
No, they wouldn't use them for
hunting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Yes, the
Maybe
Amish hunt with guns.
They
it's
hunt
usually
with
the
guns,
only reason
but
they
they
possess
would not
firearms.
defend themselves with guns.
All right.
Provides meat for their families. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, well, yeah, we're definitely off the track here. End of the day, yeah, social engineering bad. So that's the moral that I got from this article. I do want to remind y'all that once again, Technado is sponsored by ACI Learning, the people behind IT Pro. So if you're watching from the website, you can click on that big orange button that says "Sponsored by" and go take you to the IT Pro website. You can watch our videos there. That's our day job. We love what we do, and if you want to support the podcast, check those out. Use that code Technado30 for a discount on your membership. Also, really quick, I'm gonna change it up a little bit. I want to insert this because we're getting really close to Wild West Hack and Fest, and I want to talk about it now before I forget. So we were like maybe a month out, not even by the time this episode comes out, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I was hoping that maybe you could speak on it a little bit because I know usually I talk about it, and you've actually been before. So
what do you want to know?
Well, I don't know. Just what are you looking forward to?
Everything about it is awesome. Talks, right? The talks are great. This basically the 1-2 punch of Wild West Hack and Fest are phenomenal talks by great speakers, as well as the ability to get in a room and engage with your fellow security professionals, right? Because there's a lot of tribal knowledge that's difficult to pass on in a course or, in a YouTube video or something like this in a podcast format, where when you sit down with someone, you start having a conversation about what they do, and it's very niche to what they work on because of the field that they're in, but they're still applying cybersecurity to that. And then you see how that can apply, and you go, oh, maybe I can apply it that way and you start to grow your horizons when it comes to how can I apply cybersecurity? How does this fit? How does this work? You gain a lot of context, and all of a sudden, all those theories and concepts that you pick up, maybe if you're watching us on IT Pro from ACI Learning, you're watching Security Plus, or you're watching CISA Plus, or Pentest Plus, or CEH, or whatever other security course that we have available. And it's like, cool, those are great concepts. I don't really get it.
Yeah.
When you get in a room with someone who applies that concept every day, now you got context wrapped around it. And all of a sudden it makes it more real. It makes it more, I see how that works. And now I can more, I can better apply that in my day-to-day life. So that's the real value add to go into something like Wild West Hack and Fest. And Wild West Hack and Fest for me has always been the best at that. Just hands down, bar none. It's a great time. A lot of great people. You get to go if you're into celebrity hackers, if that's a thing, a lot of them are going to be there, and they don't care. You just walk right up and say, "Hey, I love your stuff," and they're happy to talk with you. Yeah. So definitely worthwhile, and that ticket price is something I think is definitely worth its weight.
I've never heard you talk about Wild West Hack and Fest and not be giddy. So it makes me excited to go and experience it. So just wanted to have an opportunity to hear you talk about it since you've actually been before. Daniel and also Ronnie Wong will be there again this year alongside myself. It'll be my first year there. It's the week of October 16th. So if you're going to be there, come find us and say hi. But we are getting close. So I wanted to mention that as well. And then also, of course, if you are watching from YouTube, like I said, feel free to comment below. Let us know what you liked about this episode, what you want to see more of, and maybe even subscribe to the channel. And I think there's a bell you can hit for like notifications and stuff. You can tell I'm a YouTuber. You can tell I'm familiar with so you can hit that bell if you want to get notified when IT Pro publishes new content there. You can also check out our webinars and our live on social events on our YouTube channel. I believe we've got one this week that has to do with AI, so that's always a hot topic. Should be pretty fun to watch. And then, of course, we know that we've got a lot of people that listen on podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for listening, and I believe you're able to turn on notifications there as well. If you like the show, if you found us and you're like, hey, this is pretty cool stuff, feel free to turn that on as well to get notified when we go not public, when we publish new episodes, when we go public.
It's an IPO.
Yes, when we go public. The brain's turned on today.
Yep.
So I think that is going to do it for me, unless I'm forgetting anything.
Absolutely, you're forgetting something.
I'm probably. That's, again, brain's turned off. But again, wherever you're watching or listening from, we want to thank you for tuning in to Technado, and we hope to see you next week.